We're going to have kind of a panel discussion, and so I will ask our different speakers a couple of questions. At the end, we're going to have some time available for you guys to ask questions as well. But if you have something that comes up, feel free to chat or ask questions. So I'm going to start with Samantha. So in looking at that emergency guide, how do I know what type of alerts to use when?
It's definitely a great question, and I think a lot of our faculty and staff might feel sometimes overwhelmed with like what to report, when, and how to report it. And so the good news is the things that kind of fell on like the left mild side of that spectrum usually aren't urgent things that need to be taken care of right away. And as they progress towards the right-hand side of the chart that you just showed us, those are things that need immediate intervention. So when we're talking about Patriot Strong, which is the topic that I'll be talking a little bit about, Patriot Strong are definitely the types of alerts that are not serious. They don't require immediate attention. They don't require, police intervention or 911 or anything like that. A Patriot Strong alert can be issued for one of 7 reasons. In your interactions with students, you might overhear them talking about some academic or advising concerns. Maybe you feel like they need to get linked up with someone in the Career Success Center to talk about job opportunities, internships, resume building, things like that. They may also experience some issues with getting enrolled in their classes, financial issues. Those are especially a big topic right now. They're always a big topic, but given what we're going through in the world, a lot of families are impacted by COVID financially. They may be experiencing housing concerns. Maybe it's a roommate difficulty that they just can't seem to overcome and get on the same page as them. And then they may also have student engagement concerns where you're thinking, you know what, the student really needs to get plugged in on campus. They need to get involved. Let's, tell them about leadership opportunities and how to get involved with volunteering. So you can tell, given that those are the different Patriot Strong alerts available, those are all very mild. And so they would not require, immediate fast acting intervention on your part to get the student the help that they need.
So how would someone check the status of an alert after it's been issued?
Okay, so in terms of issuing alerts, I want to take a quick minute and kind of show everyone how you do that to begin with, because in order to check the status of an alert, you need to have issued an alert previously. So let me share my screen. Let's see. Is everyone able to see my screen? I'm on the UT Tyler landing page. Okay, cool. So the quickest way to get to the platform that we use to issue an alert is to go to the UT Tyler webpage and then click the 3 lines in the top corner. Josh calls it a hamburger. I think everyone has their own little name for it. When it pops up this menu here, you'll want to select the link that says faculty/staff. And then this bottom right-hand icon says EAB Navigate Issue Alert. And some of our faculty may already be familiar and use EAB Navigate, but if you're a staff member, chances are this might be your first time even seeing it or hearing about it. As you can see with me being on campus right now, it does use a single sign-on, so it just plugs in my credentials, knows who I am, and verifies all that. If you're off campus, it is going to have you put in your UT Tyler username and password. But then once you get logged in, you'll end up on this landing page. It will look different if you're a faculty member. If you're faculty, in this section here, it'll say, what students you are assigned to, essentially what students are enrolled in your classes for the current term. So as a staff member, you won't have any students listed there, and that's completely fine. But what we are going to do is pretend that we're issuing an alert for a student. We'll say that I met with him earlier today and we were talking about something related to student engagement, and he's like, I really want to start a student org on campus. We don't have an organization based on, what this specific interest is. And so he wants to start a new organization on campus. So what I would do, there's a couple different ways to find a student and issue an alert. But the quickest way is to just select the magnifying glass in the top right corner and to enter the student's name. And you can enter all of it or just part of it. it'll load all of the students who kind of meet that name criteria, and then you just select the appropriate student from the list that comes up. And it'll take you to their profile, which gives you a bunch of information right off the bat that might be really helpful when you're talking to the student or working with them. In our case, what we're going to want to do is select this icon or this link on the right-hand side that says issue an alert. As we can see here, it already says the student's name. The next option that we have to select is why we believe the student needs assistance. So I had mentioned those 7 different alert types. In this case, we are referring to student engagement. The student has said, yeah, I really want to be connected on campus, but I don't feel like there's a student org that really fits my needs and my interests. So in this case, we would select student engagement. And if you're selecting an academic alert, you may want to select what class it's associated with. In this case, it doesn't matter if it's associated with a specific class because it's related to student engagement and involvement on campus. So we don't have to select anything from that. But then what's important is entering detailed comments in this box here. I will say anything that you enter in this box, the student is able to view because it becomes part of their FERPA record. So they have access to request that. So anything that you put here should be based on your interaction with the students, facts that they may have presented you with. You don't really want to speculate or provide your own opinions, which most of the time when issuing a Patriot Strong alert, there's not a whole lot of that comes into play. It's just straightforward. Student has a housing concern with their roommate, or student wants to learn job interview skills. So there's not a lot of room for that type of speculation, but just something important to keep in mind. So in this case, I'll say Corbin is interested in starting a new org on campus, has mentioned desire to meet new students with same interests and wants to do so through a new org. So that's pretty much a summary of my interaction with the student. I would go ahead and submit it. What it does at this point is sends it to a triage member, so someone who's specifically responsible for receiving these alerts and figuring out who's the best person to help in this case. So in this instance, the alert would be triaged to Josh Neves, and he would look within our Patriot Strong teams to figure out, okay, who's the best person to help Corbin get a new organization started on campus. So essentially that's the short of how you can issue an alert for a student. But to go back to Kim's question from a couple moments ago, she wanted to know, how do we follow up on an alert? So we'll say, maybe it's been a week or 2 weeks and we're thinking, man, you know, has Corbin ever got in touch with anyone about starting a student organization? Like, what's the latest, what's happening? So we'll pretend that we've logged back into Navigate for the first time. It takes us to this landing page that we got to. And in the same fashion, I'm just going to search for the student. And when it loads this page, we want to click this link that says reports/notes. It's the tab at the top. And we'll see here it says open cases for Corbin. It'll show the date that you opened the case, what type of alert it was, who you are, who issued the alert essentially, and then who it was assigned to. If you click manage case, you're able to kind of see line by line comments that have been entered. So maybe Josh assigned this case to someone and they enter a comment that says reached out to student via email, set up an appointment to talk with him next week. And then they may have another comment that says met with student and gave him information about the process to create a student organization on campus. You know, we'll follow up again in a week. So you can kind of see like a play-by-play as the alert is being resolved. And then once the person who is working with the student feels that it's been appropriately handled, they've issued all of the concerns that the student might have, and they're comfortable with closing the case, they would do so by selecting this icon down here. And there's a couple different outcome alert reasons that you have to select from. In this case, we'll say issue resolved, met with student to go over process to create a new org on campus. So that would then tell me on the back end when I'm looking at reporting and other things like that, that someone reached out to the student, that it was successfully resolved, and and that the student has the steps on how to issue how to create a new organization on campus. So it seems kind of lengthy now that I've explained it, but I promise once you've done it a couple times, it sort of becomes second nature to both issue alerts and then follow up on them.
So Samantha, are there other type of alerts that we need to be aware of?
So I would say when it comes to the alerts, the different alert types that we have, if you select the wrong one, for instance, it's usually not a big deal. We're able to get that updated and sent to the correct area. But I know we've got a variety of faculty and staff who are joining us today. So I want to point out probably what one of the biggest speed bumps that we run into. A lot of times we will see someone issue someone will issue a student engagement alert. And when we read the comments, it says, you know, Jill is not participating in class. She attends, but is not engaged with the content and, you know, doesn't answer questions and get involved with discussions. So the interpretation then essentially of what a student engagement alert isn't incorrect. But when we look at it through a lens of Patriot Strong, really that type of alert should have been issued as an academic alert because it's related to their classroom performance. So all in all, it doesn't create too much of an issue for us if we have the wrong alert type selected. We are able to get that switched over and taken care of. But sometimes for reporting purposes, if we see a bunch consistently that come in under the wrong alert reason, we may reach out to the people who are responsible for issuing those alerts and just say, hey, wanted to remind you about which type of alert you should be selecting for which reasons. And the good news is with all of this, whether it's issuing an alert, following up, knowing what type of alert to issue, really anything Patriot Strong related, it will be housed on a new portion of our webpage, the student engagement webpage. There will be training videos, so you can go back in and kind of reference all the things we've just talked about and learn a little bit more about some of the features that Navigate has for our students. So don't feel like you have to have memorized all of this in the short time that we've chatted. That should be up within the next week or so. And an email will go out to all faculty and staff about how they can use Navigate. So just keep an eye out for that.
All right, let's go to Dave and talk about things that are maybe a little more serious in cases. So what happens when a care report is filed? What does intervention look like for that?
I had the page pulled up and then I was trying to follow along to make sure I could do it. So, all right, give me 1 second. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And I will show, first off, I want to try to show y'all how to file a report with my office. Basically, I'm going to take you to how to find our web page. There's a multiple types of reports you can file through my office, which is student conduct and intervention. I'm going to focus on the care reports. Again, you click on the dashy thing up here, do a search for student conduct, and lo and behold, we are the first thing that pops up. You can click on that link, and there's two ways that you can do the report. There is a link onto the side here, and it'll give you a drop menu that lists. You can go directly to the reports if you know the one you're looking for, or you can go just to the overview. If you're not sure, this has the links to the reports, and it gives you a description of them. So you can report academic integrity issues. You can report things directly to the care team. There's a variety of stuff we've got here. We're going to do the care report, which is going to be this one here. And most of our reports are going to look about like this. Now, let me make sure we're still doing this right. Can everybody see the report form? See nods? We're good. Okay, so this gives sort of an overview of what will happen. We do ask that you give us your information here, and that is so we can follow up with the reporter. Now, if you ever call my office directly to report, call me on the phone to talk about a care report, I will still probably ask you to go ahead and fill out the online form, because that way we will have a document in your words that will go out to the entire care team at once. And if there's supporting documentation you need to add, you can do that. I'll show you in just a moment how. But we need your information here. We can keep your contact information confidential to whatever degree we can. Now, when you are filling out the information for the student in question, it's pretty straightforward: name, student ID number, date of birth, all that. When you select the role, you're probably going to want student of concern. Responding party is usually someone that we think may have violated a policy. Reporting party is if there's someone who is reporting to or responding to an issue. A lot of time that can be university police. Most care reports, though, they're going to have a student of concern, maybe some witnesses. Usually it's just going to be those. If you have the student's ID number, please give it to us. We have a fair number of students who have very similar names, and the student ID or the date of birth can help us narrow down who it is we're looking for. So we have a very large list of things to select from, and this is just to give us an idea when you send it, just the kind of things that we're looking at. Most of the time, most reports we get only have 2, maybe 3 of these selected. And a lot of the reports we get are really simple things like depression, anxiety. Those are fairly common, and we have a lot of good resources for them. But if you have, basically anything in here, and then we've got the generic, other concerns, and you can describe it in more detail. This block here is really the important one. This is where you tell us in your own words what happened and what your concerns are. You describe what's happened, what you've seen. Please give us as much detail as possible. If you have someone who is making threatening statements, include examples of what they've actually said and done. Anything along those lines will help us get a much better, clearer idea of what's going on. Now, in some cases, it's reasonable for the reporter to have confronted the student or talked about their concerns with them. Sometimes it's not. We do ask that you let us know if you've already spoken to them, just so we kind of have an idea of where the situation is. Not all, but some cases, university police may be involved. Please let us know that, just so we know to check with them. Some situations involve the student possibly being transported to jail or for medical transport. Please let us know if you're aware of any of these. And finally, at the bottom here, you can attach supporting documentation. So a lot of times that's emails, sometimes it's notes or pictures. But once you do that, you hit submit. A copy of this report will go to each member of the care team, and we can start responding to it. Now, once the report is filed, basically what will happen is we will review the report. We will try to get a sense for how serious it is, what's going on. And in some cases, we will review it and the care team will discuss it at our regular Thursday meetings. In some cases, we'll call an emergency meeting or immediately start consulting with the appropriate staff members to respond right away. The response can involve a lot of things. We do a lot of welfare checks. We do a lot of outreach from my office. We do a lot of referrals, including to offices like counseling, the SAR office, academic success, just whatever office can help the student. Some of what we encounter is behavioral, but some of it's situational. We're seeing more and more cases that involve things like homelessness or food insecurity, for example. But the team is made up. We have staff members from the counseling center, from the student accessibility office, from my office, residence life, university police, the dean of students office, and academic success. So between the membership, a lot of times we've got someone right on the team who can reach out or may already have contact with the student. And a lot of the reports we get, it turns out it was somebody having a bad day. But we catch a lot of much more serious things. We do see, like I said earlier, we see a lot of depression, we see a lot of anxiety, all the way up to self-harm and suicidal thoughts or even suicide attempts. So the more information we get, the better. We've had increasing numbers of reports every year, and a lot of that I think is just our population has grown, and we've done a better job every year of letting people know that the care team exists. So I don't think that our student situations have gotten a lot worse. I just think that we're now in a position to know about them. But last year we had roughly 180 some odd students of concern. The year before that, it was maybe 170, but it's gone up every year for the last several years, and I honestly, I suspect that's going to continue.
So Dave, how do care and conduct work together?
We will look at what the student is going through and what actually happened. There are some cases that are reported as a conduct case, and we'll look at it and realize the behavior doesn't really rise to the level of a violation, but it's still concerning. And so I may refer the case over to care. Or we may have a care case that, yes, the student has some issues going on, but they did violate a policy. And so there are some cases are referred from one process to the other. There are some cases that they are both addressed at the same time through both processes. One kind of case can turn into the other, and that happens a fair bit. We have a lot of conduct cases that start as a straightforward conduct case, but as we meet with the student and talk with them, other things start coming out, and then we make a referral to the care process. But both both processes refer students to each other, and that happens fairly often.
So what are the goals for the conduct process?
The primary goal is student success. We want our students to graduate, which I know sounds odd coming from the guy who decides if they stay as students or not. But we really want them to learn from what happened. When we have someone who's violating policies, one of the things we want to see is there something else going on? Sometimes a six-pack in the fridge is just a six-pack in the fridge. Sometimes it is a sign of self-medication or something else. We want students to learn from the situation. I'm one of the few offices that really hopes we don't get a lot of repeat business. But if this, as long as they're here, we want them to be successful. So we want to address behaviors that are either destructive to themselves or to the campus or anyone else. Things that are impeding. Some of their behaviors are just disruptive, and if you have someone who's having a party down the hall, every weekend and you can't sleep, it affects your ability to study. So we want to make sure that disruptions, that one student's behavior isn't affecting other students as well.
All right. Linda, so what's the difference between referring someone to the care team and referring them to the counseling center?
When you refer to the care team, I feel like it's a process where you get to sort of hand off the case, and you don't have to personally necessarily interact with that student and make that more specific referral to counseling. Now, sometimes a referral to counseling might be more indicated if the student's dealing with some things that you can tell they could benefit from speaking to a counselor about. But I would recommend if you have more safety concerns, just to make sure that somebody follows up, maybe you want to refer to the care team. And of course you can do both as well. So you make the online report for the care team, and you can refer, suggest for the student to make an appointment with us.
Yeah, so a lot of times if you consult with the counseling center, they'll encourage you to also do a care report. since counseling is confidential, you know, they can't necessarily let you know how follow up with you about whether or not the student came. So being able to also do a care report helps to, you know, keep people from falling through the cracks that way if they choose not to attend counseling. But Linda, what are some of the most common concerns that you see in counseling?
Kind of what Dave was talking about. We do see mainly students dealing with anxiety and depression. It can be a range of issues and ranges in severity. We do see quite a few severe cases, and we see students that have some level of suicidal ideation quite commonly, unfortunately. But I think part of that is too that there is less stigma than there used to be. So for us, it's kind of like, oh wow, you know, like our area has really grown since I've been here the past 10 years. So so yeah, we see more students with we really primarily see students with mental health concerns that can be you know, moderate to severe, but we also see some, you know, milder like interpersonal type issues and some study skills stuff as well. So it varies.
So Linda, if I refer someone to counseling, what happens with that? Am I going to be able to know if they followed up or how they're doing?
Only if they sign a release form, and then typically they would just sign a release for us to be able to let you know that they came in and attended their appointment.
Thank you. MK, so what do I do if I have a student that tells me they have a disability?
Well, short answer is refer them to our office. It's not always that clear cut when a student, as either faculty or staff, I know we have both on the webinar today. You know, sometimes you have those students who are wonderful self-advocates and they will go to a faculty member and say, hello, I have a disability. I need accommodations for your course. Where should I go? So many faculty members, which I am very appreciative of, have the disability and accessibility statement in their syllabi. So that's always a good reference for our students. But if they do come up to you directly and are asking questions about accommodations, or if they come up to you and just in conversation, you realize that they're having difficulties in your classroom, accessing the materials, keeping up with readings, and having some struggles maybe in exams and quizzes, we are a great resource for that. So I always like to remind faculty and staff that you should not be asking specifics about disabilities. The students can absolutely self-disclose if they want to, if they feel comfortable for that, but we are the office that asks those more in-depth questions about disability. So if you do get those questions, you get an inkling from talking with the student that our office may be a good referral, then you can refer them to our website, and I'm gonna go ahead and share screen here. Does everybody see that? So this is our main page. Students can access this page just either Googling UT Tyler SAR, SAR, UT Tyler Disability Services, or going to our website directly. On our main page, we have our online application link. They can click on that, and it'll take you to our application and login page. So this page in the middle, for students who are already hooked up with services through our office, they should know to go and log in every semester to request what we call faculty notification letters that list out the accommodations we've approved for students. They know to log in here and go through the process of lining up those faculty notification letters to be sent at the beginning of every semester. This semester they'll be sent out next Friday, just FYI to faculty.
But if it's a new student who's never been hooked up with services, who's never spoken with us, they can go to the section on the right that says new student and click on submit your application. So when I say disability for new faculty members, that can mean a lot of things. We have students who have mental health needs that come through our office, physical disabilities, deaf and hard of hearing students, blind students, and students with visual impairments, chronic illnesses, which is of particular concern now since we're still in the pandemic. And that is definitely a concern that we've heard from students and staff and faculty already this semester. So student with a disability can come to the application page, they'll fill in their personal information, then they'll fill in the particulars about their disabilities. This page or this section is not, it's not all of the disabilities we may encounter. It's a growing list, and it's one that the SAR office has been working on for many, many years. But just because a student does not have, what they consider their disability on this list doesn't mean that we won't be able to talk to them and complete the intake process. So they'll fill in the information about the disability and then let us know what sort of accommodations they're looking for. That is pretty straightforward and what the students are, we've done in the past. Now, because of COVID, we do have some changes, which is why I wanted to talk a little bit more about our process. We currently are doing online, Zoom and in-person intakes. We're working heavily with Zoom, as all of us are. And I have given out a revised course syllabus information to Colleen Swain, and I believe she disseminated that information to all the faculty and staff. Of course, if you don't have that, I'm happy to field any questions or to send that information to you. But that's the real big change that we have right now with our application process and with fielding questions from current students who are already getting services as well.
So what do I do if a student needs a COVID related accommodation?
Let's stop sharing. So excellent question. And I'm going to give the response that everybody loves. It depends. So if we're talking about a student who has a disability who needs the accommodation, if it's a student related, please send them to our office. We are going to get that documentation and have the intake with them and get them hooked up with an accommodation that will hopefully address those needs. The reason why I say it depends is because students have a variety of COVID concerns. So if the concern is related to a member of their family, a member of their household that has the disability, we're not taking those cases. Those and cases that are just related to maybe parenting concerns, what's happening in the K through 12 system. I mean, that could change at any point. So if someone has a disability related issue that's not their own, it's a family member's or someone in their house, or if they have anything related to like childcare, we're still referring them to individual faculty members who, it's my understanding, can go to their administrative teams in their colleges to work with them. And just so y'all know, some of the more common requests that we are fielding are requests related to masks, students not being able to wear them, potentially because of physical disabilities or other disabilities, and wanting online learning is another options is another pretty common one right now. But that's not necessarily all that we're going to see. So by all means, send them our way.
All right, let's go to Kobe. Tell me a little bit about what a military affiliated student is.
Thanks, Kim. So military affiliated students include a bunch of different categories. They include student veterans, active duty students, students who are in the Reserve or National Guard, as well as military spouses and dependent children. So we've got a wide range of students that we support, and it doesn't always occur to some people, hey, if I I am a military dependent or am I a military spouse, can I still receive services through the MVSC? And that answer is absolutely, you can.
Great. So what services does the MVSC offer?
What we are primarily known for is the processing of educational benefits. So those are individuals who are using the GI Bill, individuals who qualify for the Hazelwood exemption. We receive those documents, we process them, make sure the institution gets paid, and the students receive any benefits that they're entitled to. As we begin to expand some of our services, we're looking to provide more support for our students and get more involved in some of the advocacy work that some of our students may require. Ideally, if there's a military-related student or military-affiliated student who has some sort of issue, we would be brought into the loop. We would be able to support that student and then refer them out to other campus or community resources that they may need.
So when should I contact the MVSC if there's an issue with a military affiliated student?
As soon as that issue comes up. I've sent a few emails already to different people just asking, hey, can we be added to your forms? Again, it's my third week, so just seeing, this is good for me to see where some of our gaps are and identifying who these students are. So as soon as an issue comes up, please reach out to me or Chris Cox, who is our coordinator. Reach out to one of us, especially if it's an issue involving our student veterans. Sometimes we can have the vet-to-vet talk with some of our students and pull them back in line if we need to. And sometimes it's easier for us to do that, again, vet to vet, than sometimes going to some of the more formal processes. We don't want to shield our students from the consequences that they may receive, but sometimes it's easier for us to say, hey man, what are you doing? Hey sister, you've served, you know what the deal is. Help us out here, work with us. Let's get this fixed. And that's something that we're both more than willing to do.
Thank you. Dana, when should a student be referred to the Center for Student Financial Wellness? You're on mute.
I was telling myself in my head I wouldn't do that. Anyway, so great question. Really, anytime a student mentions a financial issue, they can come to my office. It could be related to they're trying to figure out better money management skills, or they have questions about how they're going to maybe purchase a home or purchase a car, or how do they, budget for groceries or whatever that is as they're graduating. It can also be financial aid, and I get questions about financial aid a lot. Sometimes students don't want to go stand in the very long and slow line for the one-stop shop because they are so busy. And so I'll get emails, I'll get phone calls, or have students come by asking questions about their financial aid. So for the one-on-one counseling appointments or financial counseling appointments that I do, the vast majority of those come from faculty staff referrals. So students don't come to see me when they're doing great. They don't come to me as a preventative measure. They come to me in crisis with their money. So I really rely on faculty staff at UT Tyler to kind of be listening for those things, for money situations that might be coming up in the conversations and interactions they're having with students, and send them my way so that I can talk to the student, trying to figure out what's going on, make sure that they get the resources they need.
Great. So what kind of presentations do you do for classes or groups?
Yeah, so the other side of my job is talking a lot to different groups, and on the website, and I'll share my screen here in a moment and show y'all that. But on the center's website, we do have a list of like standard presentations that I do. There's 5 or 6 of them on there now. And you can request me to come speak to your student org, to your classroom, to a group of students, such as RAs. Excuse me, I just did a session for RA training earlier this week. So it runs the gamut. I can, talk to pretty much any group that you require. But I'll share my screen really quick here just to show you a list of those. There we go. So that's our main page. And just while I'm on here as well,
when you go to the presentation scheduling, there's not a fancy form or anything like that. You just email me, and I ask that I get requests 30 days in advance, just because I'm a one-person office and I'm pretty swamped. So I try to get those on my calendar as soon as possible. But here are some of the workshops we have. So I come in and talk about credit scores and what goes into a credit score and building credit, building a budget for students, and that's pretty common for some of the lower grades. My seniors and grads and non-traditional students need it too, but a lot of freshman, sophomore groups will ask me to do that for them. I do workshops on paying off student loans and talking about debt repayment and avoiding default and delinquency and the resources that are out there for that, which student loans are always at the forefront of the national conversation anymore. I do a workshop on money narratives and stigmas about personal finance and how people view us through that lens and how we rewrite those narratives for ourselves. In October, I work with a few different groups, and we do a workshop on financial abuse and how to recover from those situations. And that curriculum in particular is a national curriculum provided by Allstate. It's called the Purple Purse, and we do a lot with that. Especially in October because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but I can do the presentation anytime. And then the last one, which is pretty fun, is how we can save money by making gifts ourselves, and I'll bring all the ingredients and supplies to do that. And you can get a list of ingredients, what it costs like per product. Usually it's like different hand scrubs and body scrubs, things like that. We just do some different things. And that one's a popular one with Greek Life. They like to come and do that every year. But this is not a comprehensive list. Know that I can do and talk about lots of different things. There are lots of different things that are covered by the guiding principles, the Senate bill and House bills that dictate that my job exists in public education in Texas. So if you can think of something under the personal finance umbrella, I can probably come and talk about it. Or if it's something that is very specific, such as, you want someone to talk about mortgages and how we do all of that, I do have some contacts in the Tyler financial community, and they can come in as well as a guest speaker and discuss some of the ins and outs of that. And particularly in situations like that, when they are someone who works with mortgages every day, I would certainly like their expertise on that. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades.
Thank you, Dana. So we're going to talk for a few minutes about what we need to know about our campus events coming up. And so, Vicki, I'm going to start with you. How is social distancing due to COVID impacting our event scheduling?
Well, I would say, as far as UT Tyler is concerned, I mean, nationally, a very high percentage of events have gone virtual. For the fall, UT Tyler is the same. Virtual is definitely a go-to option for a lot of people. Some of your larger events and conferences, they've actually been postponed or canceled just due to there's just no way on campus that we can hold a larger event due to social distancing. Hybrid is an option as well, with half of the group showing up and then Zooming or using Teams or another video conference option to send that out, so people can watch it on their computer. Another way you can also do it is just provide an event in multiple dates. So if you have a larger group of 75 people, then split those up into a couple of groups and hold it over 2 days, and that would kind of help as well. One of the big things that's changed is food service. All of us like to have food at our events. It gets more people there, it's more fun, but just one of the things that you need to know is that with any type of food service, or if you're passing out anything, the person has to be gloved or masked if they're serving it, or if they hand it to them. With that all-day service of coffee sitting, in one spot for people to go up and get during the day, that's gone. You have to have somebody actually standing there and serving that. Prepackaged foods or boxed lunches are encouraged. That's, for breakfast, the breakfast burritos or breakfast sandwiches or muffins or fruit in individual cups. sandwiches and wraps and salads in boxes. Buffets are not a good option because you actually have to have something that is between, a large piece of plexiglass or something that's actually in between the actual food and the person. So that's really not a good option. The big thing to remember is that you have to have gloves and masked server handing out items.
Great. So if I'm planning an event, how can I tell how many people a room will hold? Is it 50% of all previous room capacities, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, not necessarily. I know environmental health and safety have actually gone through all the classrooms, and for the academic space, you're looking about, for the majority of them, 50%, just straight across the board, 50%. But if you go into Astra and you're using the online form to request your space, then it's going to actually populate rooms that are within the COVID capacity. And that's kind of what I'm calling it, is the COVID capacity. So if it's an event space, it's not really, it's not 50%. So for example, the OAC would typically hold 320 people with roundtables and chairs in a banquet setting. Now with banquet setting, it's 56. So I'm not a math person, but I do know that 56 is not 50% of 320. And then for a classroom setting, it only holds 70 people. And for an auditorium, it only holds 80 people. So you just really have to kind of keep that in mind. And that's why a lot of our larger events are being postponed, is because we really don't have a place on campus that's going to hold more than 56 plus people, except for the gym. And then with the gym, you have an additional cost associated with that. And then you have to work around the athletic schedule, which is kind of up in the air as well. One thing to remember is that with the UC ballroom, due to hiring constraints, the UC can't hire a lot of workers like they have in the past to help with setups. So that is set up in a ballroom setting, and it holds 54 people. And I believe they're not making any changes, of course, unless President Tidwell says, hey, let's make a change. But you're really looking at just a ballroom setting for the UC.
Okay, great. So the UT Tyler reboot procedures state that contact tracing is needed for all events. So who's responsible for that? How do we do that?
The person that is actually hosting the event is responsible for that. Now, our office has actually come up with, we've created an event attendance form based off of what the UT Tyler reboot procedures are, that will actually upload into DocuSign. So you'll have to go into DocuSign, print the form, and then upload it back into DocuSign once it's completed, and then send that to, just forward that on, and it goes to the UT Tyler Police Department, which is in part of that incident response team that's in charge of contact tracing. The second option is using the Patriot Engage platform, and a lot of people know about that. And if not, I think Josh should go into it in a little bit more detail, but it can allow you to virtually check in using a QR code. And I don't know a lot about it, but I know that the platform has a great way that if I attend a meeting and I'm associated with several different meetings and I've checked in using Patriot Engage, and then I come down with COVID, then it can actually pull up all of the meeting attendees that I've attended at meetings and be able to notify them at one time versus having to go through paper forms and looking. So we have an events procedural manual online. It's not really COVID based, but it has a lot of questions for people who have questions about events. And then there's video tutorials on how to navigate through Astra, but we can always be reached, we're just phone call, email. You can email our department or give us a call and we can help with any questions.
Great. So Josh, can you tell us a little bit about the Patriot Engage and if it has an app, what that looks like?
Yes, ma'am. So as Vicki mentioned, there's a lot of faculty staff who I recognize on this call who are very familiar with Patriot Engage. And for those who are not, I'm going to show you where you can go to access it. So everybody.
Josh, you sound like you're in a well.
Ooh, that's not good.
Oh, that's getting better.
How about now?
Oh, that's much better.
All right. Tech problems. All right, so everybody should be able to see my screen. So on the website, you click on the hamburger menu. That's what Samantha was right. I do call it the hamburger. You'll click on students, and it's right there now. It says Patriots Engage. The other option is you can click on upcoming events. But what we're seeing is most individuals are clicking on the Patriots Engage button. You'll log in with your UT Tyler credentials, and based on your involvement, so if you are an advisor of one or multiple student organizations, you should see all your student organizations right here. Or if you are a overseeing office or department, we are starting to receive a lot more requests to create office and department accounts, and they will be located on your home screen. You'll also see all the upcoming events. You'll see there will be another section with all your events that you've RSVP'd to, and then you can create news articles, but we are seeing a lot of our student groups are doing that, and students are actually clicking on them. But this is kind of a one-stop location to be able to see all the events that are happening on campus for students. It's not designed or meant for the Tyler community. It is really only for faculty, staff, and students to see what is happening on campus. And so when your office or student organization creates an event in Patriots Engage, after it is approved by the advisor and our department, it will show up here on the website. And then as Vicki was mentioning about the check-in features, the officers or whoever created the event would be able to use the check-in features. And so there's a lot of different ways. We do have card readers in which you can swipe a student ID, but to really reduce the contact of touching student IDs, we are encouraging that groups use this new feature that Engage rolled out, and where individuals can either click on the link or you take this link and you create a QR code. And then individuals can scan that QR code, and then they are checked in. And when they do check in, it is associated with your UT Tyler account. And so we know officially who is checking in. And so it is going to help with contract tracing. But as an event host, you may want to send a follow-up survey. You may want to keep record of who's attending your events. You will also have access to that data as well. And so that way you can contact them to market your next event or to follow up and to simply thank them. As Kim also asked if there's an app. There is an app. It's called Cork, and it pays homage to the old cork boards that we're probably all familiar to. And so the app is CORQ. But what we are finding is students, since it is so mobile friendly, students are simply viewing Patriots Engage under their web browser and not the app. And so it is very mobile friendly, but it's either option. And so you are definitely welcome to check that out.
Josh, what type of reports are we able to run when we've had an event?
Right. So after, as long as you're using the check-in feature, we've had several offices at the end of the semester, they will ask us, hey, can you quickly generate us a list of events that we hosted? We can run that type of report. We can run a report to show all the individuals that they attended their event, along with some demographic data. So if they're trying to measure GPAs, to kind of show the students who attended 4 of my events had a higher GPA than students who didn't attend any of my events. We're able to help you with those reports. And it could be based on month, semester, or year long. And so it has been really fantastic. The Division of Student Success, we were able to look at just in one academic year, we impacted over 2,300 students. And that was just events. It does not include the services that are offered that you've heard throughout today. That was just student activity events that are hosted by each of our offices. And so that's really great data to share and to tell our story. But what we're also able to show is that students who are more involved tend to have a higher GPA, and they are being retained at a higher rate. And then hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll also begin to show graduation rates as it pertains to engagement. So it's a great platform, and it's a great way, not just for safety reasons, as Vicki was mentioning, but just across the board. And it is also part of our strategic plan. And so it is, we've already made it known that this was a tool that we were going to use to help achieve that strategic plan.
Great. Thank you. So does anyone have any questions for any of our speakers? All right. So if no one has any questions, I'm sure that any of us would be willing to, if you think of something later that that you're curious about or would like assistance with or need to consult about, any one of us on this presentation would love to assist you with that. So feel free to contact us. And thank you all for joining today.